And we are live with another episode of BS Busters. Sorry, we're having a few technical difficulties with YouTube because the link to start was not showing up because YouTube is a bitch. So, with that being said, thank you for joining us. We're live. I'm joined by. Go ahead, introduce yourself.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, to this BS Busters Midweek podcast for October 21st, 2020. I am Joy Eli Moonstar, and oh boy, there's some there's some company theft going on. But then again, they're not doing anything with it.
Yeah, a lot of games are like that. Just a lot of
I'm
stuff that's
talking
not.
about I'm talking about people getting I'm talking about Blizzard losing their workers.
Well, they've been doing that for a long time. Like a lot of the old guard either left or were fired, and they just kind of fell apart. Kind of sad.
Yeah. And of course, let's not forget our ringleader of the show, Mr. Red Fox himself, owner and proprietor.
That's right. So it's me, Mr. Red Fox, I'm a proprietor of BS Busters, and tonight we're talking about remakes that failed. We also have some video game news of the week thus far. We'll also cover other things, but mostly we're going to be talking about the news of the week and video game remakes that failed. And what basically sparked this for me was I was listening to a podcast because I had nothing to do and I was working on something else, and it was one of those things that's just really tedious, but you don't need to pay a lot of attention to. And while I was doing that, I was listening to listening to a podcast where someone was talking about just how trash Final Fantasy VII Remake is and how it could have been better. And I was like, yeah, it could have been better. So with that being said, we're going to that's going to be one of the main topics we're covering. But first, let's get to some of these news stories. So last week, towards the end of last week, it came out that Sega um, canceled a.
A successor to Golden Axe?
That's right, a successor to Golden Axe. A successor to Golden Axe that actually looked like it was closer to, what you would expect from a Golden Axe. Um, I mean, and well, I can't show it to you, but basically, I mean,
I know.
it essentially was, close to Golden Axe. I mean, it was a little bit darker, but I mean, like, here's the thing: if you made a modern Golden Axe, there's some fucked up shit in Golden Axe. You've got barbarians raiding, you've got monsters raiding settlements, people being captured, folks getting thrown into spike pits. I mean, if you made that game today, there would be blood and gore in it.
It would be a truly rated M for mature game.
It would look like this. I mean, this is basically what it was. I mean, there's some blood, there's some gore, but it's still Golden Axe. It's just it looks a little bit more, semi-realistic with its graphics, but still Golden Axe. And Sega canceled the shit, and then talked shit about the thing that they canceled, like these people's work was nothing, which is what bothers me. They're like joking about the shit, like, well, fuck these people, how dare they? That bothers me.
What's going on?
We just jumped in and we were talking about how Sega was talking shit about the Golden Axe remake that these people basically bashed together like after 2 weeks,
Oh man.
and then they were talking shit about, oh, it's janky and buggy. Motherfucker, they only had 2 weeks with like 4 people.
That's that's ET development ridiculous.
And I
That's
hate to
beyond
break this to
ET.
you, it still looks better than that shit we got during the PS3 era. That Golden Axe Beast Rider. Remember that
Oh
shit?
yeah, I remember.
Like here's the thing. Sega could talk shit if they had released a Golden Axe game that was good, but they didn't. So they need to shut the fuck up. Before we go any further,
Yeah, I just hate
introduce yourself, Kanoshi.
This is Kanoshi Abominito here to say that AMD seems to be firing on all cylinders. If you've been following any of the rumors, they got their GPU is apparently their top tier GPU is running at over 2 gigahertz, which is unheard of for a GPU.
Yeah, but I mean, the only people who would need a GPU like that are people who are, rendering video and shit like that for a living. Not professional, not like super professionally, semi-professionally. But that's my own personal opinion. But yeah, AMD. I mean, if they can do it at a cost that's still well below Nvidia, they'll be fine.
Yeah.
Which it's looking like they might. But anyway, so yeah. So what are your guys' thoughts on Sega basically talking shit about people who threw something together as a proof of concept after 2 weeks, and then later on they canceled their project and then put another project through, which turned out to be a piece of shit Golden Axe game.
Makes me feel like, I'm gonna say this, it feels like Pokemon Uranium all over again.
Yeah, actually, Pokemon Uranium sounded cool. The game that where it was like an open world Pokemon game where the Pokemon could mutate because they were exposed to radiation over time.
Yeah.
I actually have a version of that game on my PC, and it's actually pretty fun. I've played about 5 hours of it. I would play more, but I have so many fucking games to play.
I was about to say, game overload.
Yeah, it's just I have so many games to play, and so like here's the thing with the COVID shutdown, I also have a lot of time to play games. I have so many games to play, so much time to finally play them.
Yeah.
One of the few good things about the shutdown is that I have so much time to play games that normally I was like, man, I'm not gonna play that game. Now I was like, I have no excuse. I have no excuse not to play this game.
Yeah, Sega's been taking a dump on their old IPs for the past few years, it seems like.
Well, I mean, like, here's the thing. Sega's like one step forward, one step back. I'm not going to say 2 steps back. It's like, okay, they will give fans the go-ahead to make Sonic Mania, but then Sega themselves will release Sonic Forces, which is a steaming pile of shit.
Yeah.
Like, it's like... Yeah.
What's going on over there? What's going on over there at Sonic Team? Like, what?
They can't make a 3D Sonic game. And, I mean, I would argue and say they've never made a good 3D Sonic game, but that's just my own personal opinion.
I would say the last decent quality Sonic game that was 3D was probably Unleashed. Of all the things I'm ever going to say.
I mean, I would say Lost World was good. But Lost World was a knockoff of Galaxy.
Yeah, that's why I stopped the game before it.
But here's the thing: if you're
Generations and Colors was okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna steal from the best. Like some people like, man, they stole that idea. Look, I have nothing against a game stealing another game's shit and making it better. Case in point, Final Fight is one of the best beat-em-ups ever. Sega said, we can do better. And they stole the concept of Final Fight and made it into Streets of Rage. And Streets of Rage is really fucking good.
Yeah, that's the thing. You can steal from other companies. It's how you do it that matters.
Like, I mean, I'll keep it real. Streets of Rage is better than the console versions of Final Fight. Even the console version of Final Fight that came to the Sega CD, Streets of Rage is better. the Streets of Rages 1-for-1 or better. But
I would argue about that, but I
okay,
can
Streets
hear
of
where you're
Rage 3
going at.
kind of sucks. I will say that Streets of Rage 3 isn't better than Final Fight 3. But if you look at you wouldn't have a Streets of Rage if you didn't have a Final Fight. Like you wouldn't have a Banjo Kazooie, a Banjo Tooie,
If you didn't have Mario.
if you didn't have Mario 64. No Mario 64, you don't get any of those other games where people tried to step it up and
So if anything, thankfully there's the good half of Mario 64 and the bad half of Mario 64. The good half will be Banjo Kazooie. The bad half, Bubsy 3D.
yeah, but Bubsy came out before Mario 64. Yeah.
Actually,
As a matter of fact,
that's probably sad to know.
it came out before Mario 64, and the people at Accolade who made that game knew they had fucked up because before, like Mario 64 and Bubsy came out in the fall, and Space World was that summer, and they had went over and played Mario 64 that was demoed on the Space World floor, and they knew they had fucked up with Bubsy 3D. They were like, shit.
Oh my god!
Like,
Are you?
I don't know about you.
That has to be embarrassing.
No, I've had this experience happen to me when I was in grade school, like 5th, 6th grade. I did a piss poor science fair project. So piss poor that I got disqualified out of the science fair. And like when I saw other people's science fair projects and I saw how great their shit looked and how half-assed and bullshit my shit looked, I knew I had fucked up. And that's basically how Accolade felt when they put their shit next to Mario 64. Like, I mean, look, listen.
I was gonna say, at least they put in effort.
I put in effort too, but my shit was so half-assed and so bullshit that it just was it was embarrassing. Like I had never had that level of incompetence in my scholastic career up to that point. Like I'd never been that half-assed with anything except that project. And but I tell you this much, I never did that shit again. Every other project I did was really professional and looked good after that point. But I mean, sometimes that's what happens. Now, unfortunately, there's been no other Bubsy games. Well, there have, but they've been shit too, but not to the level of. I mean, they have been shit. They've been better than Bubsy 3D, but that's a very low bar. That's like saying, "Hey, I no longer shit my pants." It's like, oh, congratulations.
I would make a political joke here, but that would be too easy.
That's a very low bar. Hey, guess what? I no longer shit my pants. You shouldn't shit your pants in the first place unless you're a baby. Or really old and incontinent. That's the only excuse you have to shit your pants.
No, the thing is, they made a couple more.
Yeah.
And they were pretty
mediocre.
Recent consoles.
Yeah, they were mediocre. I mean, they weren't terrible. They weren't like Bubsy back in the day, but they still were kind of shit. I mean, here's the thing. There are better like the sad thing is that because of Bubsy, there were some good mascots back in the day that could have flourished if it hadn't been for a glut of mediocre ones like Bubsy.
And I'm gonna say it. There has been some characters that have escaped the black hole of characters.
Yeah.
Though I think the most recent one, as far as I know, would be Blinks.
Blinks the Time Cat?
Yep.
Well, you know the reason that Blinks got canceled? That Microsoft dropped the character? Because a certain demographic of their gamers didn't think he was cool. That's it.
They were thinking that he's not Sonic enough.
No, they thought, oh, he's not cool. I think 30% of Xbox gamers thought that Blinks the Time Cat, or was it like 30 or 40% thought Blinks the Time Cat was lame. So because of that, they dropped the character. Not because the sales were terrible. They dropped the character because they thought that they did a survey and 30%, like 40% of the people of the gamers thought he was lame.
That's stupid.
You are correct, sir. That is
Excuse
stupid.
me while I paint my head to the wall.
This just proves that Microsoft, for the first, like, only under Phil Spencer has Microsoft acted like a video game company, like a video game publisher and developer. Because under those other people, I don't know how the fuck they were running that division, but it shows,
Yeah.
But and I'm not one of those all hell Phil Spencer people either. I don't think Phil Spencer's the best guy in the world either, but um, I'm not like, oh my god, Phil Spencer, he's the best. But I mean, it's still better than what we've been getting. That's all I'm saying. That's damning praise because, the Xbox has been badly run for years. Okay, just doing stupid shit back and forth, back to back. But anyway, let's keep it moving. So the Square Enix president Yosuke Matsuda says time has stood still in terms of production due to COVID-19. What are your guys' thoughts on that? Do you have thoughts? Do you care?
I have plenty of games to play. That's kind of how I feel about it. Plenty. I mean, it's sorry that people had to get laid off or get furloughed for whatever work they were working on. It's too bad that maybe some projects got canceled. But from the customer point of view, I have a lot of games to play right now. I barely have time to keep up with all of them.
All right. Okay. Jewel?
I'm back. Sorry about that.
Do you have any thoughts about Square Enix president saying time has stood still for game development during COVID-19?
That line is a YMMV. Your mileage may vary.
All right.
Because there's some companies that are doing pretty well under this condition, and then there's some that are really stalled, and I'm not sure where some companies end up on that scale.
All right. I'm gonna throw my piece in because I think it. Like, I can see where you guys are coming from, but this is where I'm looking at it. How the fuck do you run a multi-billion-dollar company and like a multi-billion-dollar technology company? Because if you're like I mean, it's a like Square Enix, it does entertainment, but really their core thing is the technology behind the entertainment, right? Like, if you make video games, you're working on computers and shit. And no one ever had a plan in place in case some shit jumps out for people to work from home. No one.
That's the thing. That's the reason why.
Square Enix is based in Japan, so you figure, they have stuff like tsunamis and hurricanes and stuff like that. So you figure they would have something.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and this is the reason why I said your mileage may vary, because some companies should have some technology backups in case of emergencies like this.
I mean, even okay, I know Japan has this work culture where, like, even if you're sick, you're supposed to come into work with a face mask on, and basically you're supposed to work until you're damn near dead and like hospitalized, and then, like, if you're like Owada, that poor man was working from his hospital bed, dying, fighting cancer, working to maintain Nintendo. That's fucked up. I'm sorry. That is a fucking horrific work
mentality.
Work mentality. That is terrible. Okay, but you would think with all this technology that we have, and Japan actually has a pretty good internet infrastructure because they built a lot of it from scratch, and they've actually been upgrading the shit, unlike other countries that just kind of let the shit lapse and just piecemeal shit here and there.
Yeah, America. Looking at
Well,
you.
I wasn't gonna say anything, but you know, if you want to.
Hey.
But anyway, yeah, Square Enix. You mean to tell me you never had in place? Hey, you know, there's been an accident and people can't drive. There's been an earthquake and the roads are fucked up, but we still have internet. Hey, you can log into the to the intra network from your internet with a password, and you can work on this shit at the same time. I know this shit exists because when I worked in private industry, sometimes people would be out in the field and have to check in and work on projects from a satellite location, and you would sit there and put in your password, go to a certain server, put in your password to get into the intranet server from an external port, and you could sit there and do your work, and it would be saved on that server, and then other people could look at it and check your shit. Do not fucking tell me that this shit is not possible in Japan.
Yes,
Yeah.
this is the reason why I say your mileage may vary, because if you are like somebody like Square Enix or Sony, then you have technology to work from anywhere usually.
Let me put it this way: unless you have a job where it's not something that it's something that you have to physically be there to do. Like if you work in package handling or like something where you have to physically be there. But if you have a job where basically you're in front of a computer, you don't have to physically be there. You really don't have to physically be there in order to pull off your job. You don't. I'm pretty sure you don't need to physically be in the office in order to program code for a fucking game.
Only way that would be happening is if your boss is a total beep.
Well, this is Square Enix, so I'm not really surprised. I'm just saying this shows how poorly run Square Enix is. That's all this is. This just shows how poorly run that company is.
Yeah, you figure with a company like Square Enix that has been in the game for quite a long time, that they would have developed an infrastructure that could, withstand something like this.
Handle shit like this, yeah. Or even then, it's just like, hey, like I'm pretty sure if you're a game developer, you probably you have your work PC, the PC that you have at your house, which is at your job, which is probably a workstation PC, probably tied into some other shit. Not something you're gonna have at your house, but they can't do the same level of coding as like the graphics artists can't render shit at home. But what you do is that you have the graphics artists work at the job. Okay, you section out the workstations so that like it's like okay, we have the different offices. Each office has a workstation. Let's say there's 8 offices. We clean them down every day. At the end of the day, the people come in. They like each graphics person is in one office per person with a workstation to do their graphics work and render shit, and they don't have to share workstation. They just each one gets one. And then the coders, because coding, actual writing lines of code shouldn't be as resource intensive as graphical, processing graphics in an engine. So some work could be done, is what I'm saying. Something could be done. This is a poorly run company. People act surprised that Square Enix can't get their shit together and they're just always constantly fucking up. This is why. All right. But I think we've belabored that point. I think we can move on. Next topic. Fallout New Vegas. Fallout 4 New Vegas. The team, a team of modders have been working on this game for like 6-7 years since Fallout 4 came out. Basically, they're porting Fallout New Vegas into the Fallout 4 engine. And
that's a bad idea.
no, it's a great idea.
Oh, yeah.
That's a great idea. Fallout New Vegas is arguably the best modern Fallout game. Like a lot of people who are fans of Fallout really like Fallout New Vegas. But Fallout New Vegas runs really poorly on newer PCs.
Yeah.
Doesn't run great on older PCs, but if you have a new PC, I know because I basically had to I had to download all types of mods in order to get it to run somewhat stably on my PC. And I know some people are gonna say your PC can't handle it. No, the problem is my PC is too fucking powerful to run New Vegas. It's spec too high. Kind of like how back in the day, before there was a unified architecture for a lot of PC games, like during the DOS era, you'd basically like there were some games, even if your PC spec wise could run that game, what would happen is you couldn't run it because the architecture was so different or your PC was too advanced to run that game. Well, this is happening now. Now you have to remember, this game is over a decade old, so.
I just remember people complaining about the Fallout 4 engine. That's all.
Yeah, the Fallout 4 engine is kind of shit, but here's what I've noticed. Okay, the Luminous engine, which is what they're calling it, which is what Bethesda calls it. The Luminous engine, in the hands of modders, is capable because the modders are actually taking their time to code the shit properly and not just throwing shit together. Which is what Bethesda does. But anyway, yeah, Fallout 4, Fallout New Vegas, which arguably is one of the best of the modern Fallout games, is being remade in the Fallout 4 engine, which is really what like people who were hyped up about Fallout 4 wanted before Fallout 4 came out and turned out to be a steaming pile of shit. Like people wanted Bethesda to learn the lessons from Fallout New Vegas and apply them to the next game, and instead we got a somewhat mediocre first/third person shooter with Minecraft elements and a story that basically tells you the twist in the first 10 minutes of the game.
Which is bad storytelling 101.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's the equivalent of reading a mystery book where you figure out the mystery in the first 5 pages.
Chapter.
Not chapter, 5 pages. The prologue. You're like, oh, yeah, I know.
Oh.
Yeah, literally the prologue of the game tells you the twist in the first 10 minutes of the goddamn game. Think about that. The prologue of the game tells you the twist of the ending of the game in the first 10 minutes of the game.
I'm sorry. I'm tempted to paint my head with the wall again.
Yeah, it's fucked up. I do not like Fallout New Vegas. I mean, I don't like Fallout 4. It's not a very, very well made game. I know a lot of people like it because it's easier to get into, but it's kind of shit. But anyway, yeah, they're doing a remake of Fallout New Vegas in the Fallout 4 engine. I mean, if you've played Fallout 4 and I've played that game so much back in the day on my older PCs that like now in order for me to enjoy that game, I play it with a lot of mods, which might also explain why it runs so poorly on my PC. But it's still my favorite Fallout game. After, I put it up there with Fallout 2. I like both of those games a lot. Next news topic, VR Troopers.
We are VR.
Yeah.
Oh, God. That song's never going to get out of my head.
The VR Troopers are back again. And this time they're saying that we have been on the cusp of turning the corner on VR for the last 8 years.
Excuse me, but this sounds like something political, but oh God, does that sound like
Bullshit?
like what we are hearing? hearing around.
Yeah,
A lot of heard.
VR has been bullshit. VR has been being pushed as the future since the 1980s. So really, if you want to really break it down, let's see. 1985, 1995, that's a decade. 2005, that's 20 years. 2015, that's 30 years. 2020, that's 35 years. So basically for about as long as I've been alive, a little bit longer than I've been alive, people have been pushing for VR. VR, it's the future. Let me put it this way: if the shit was gonna happen, it would have happened by now. All right.
Remember that black and red nonsense back in the I think it was the early '90s. I remember a kid had one of these like cheap portable VR gaming headsets.
Oh, you mean those Tiger Electronic things that were trash?
Yeah, it wasn't the Virtual Boy. It was something else.
No, the Virtual Boy was.
When I saw that, I thought that was like really cool. But looking back on it, I was like, ugh, that looks like that could give you a headache.
Yeah, the Virtual Boy. I mean, first of all, the Virtual Boy was misnamed. What it really was essentially slightly more advanced Game Boy Color games that you burned into your retina with cheap ass technology. Um, and the sad thing is that there's actually some good games for the Virtual Boy, but you'll never get to play them because the Virtual Boy flopped harder than a fat kid belly dropping into a pool. But the really sad thing is that people have been keep on trying to push this narrative that VR is just around the corner. It's just around the corner.
Yeah, VR as a gaming platform normality, that's as likely as, well, Red Fox hitting the lottery.
No, it would be more likely for me to hit the lottery than for VR to be just around the corner. Because I actually have done scratchers and won money. Because I have an aunt who, instead of giving people money for Christmas and birthdays, gives people scratch off tickets. And I have won like $250, $350 off of scratch off tickets she's given me. So it's more likely for me to win from a scratch off ticket than for VR to be just around the corner. I'm not saying that VR might not get here. I'm just saying that VR, for people to say it's just around the corner, is disingenuous. That's all I'm saying. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
I don't think so. I think I used VR before, or PSVR. It's just disorienting. I don't like it. I was playing a mini game. It's good for about like 10 minutes, but
then your eyes start to hurt.
It's not even that. It's just that this not actually being in the synthetic world. It just doesn't never really felt right.
Tedious.
Looking down and seeing that it's not your hands that you're looking at, but these other objects, it just feels weird. I'm not a huge fan of it.
Yeah, it is kind of bad. I'm not gonna lie. I agree. I think VR is one of the biggest technological cons we've seen in the industry, because people keep on saying it's the future. It's the future. Is it the future, or do you want it to be the future? Do you want it to be the future? Because I mean, those are two completely different things. It's like someone saying, "This hot girl is going to go with me." Are you taking steps to make the hot girl go with you, or are you just saying you want that hot girl to go with you? It's like someone saying, "I want to be rich." Well, are you doing things to make yourself be wealthy? Or are you just saying you want to be wealthy? There's, they're two completely different things. But yeah, I gotta agree with you. I think that VR is. I haven't enjoyed the VR that I've played. I think that it's kind of. How can I put this nicely? Shit. most of the VR that I've played, and I've played VR on a panoply of systems. I've played VR like of the modern best that you can get. I've played VR on the Oculus. I've played VR on the Rift. I've played VR on the Vive. I've played VR on PSVR. I've even played VR on a professional virtual reality rig on someone who has one of those ultra powerful gaming setups that, like, basically, uh, you can't even get these parts unless you're willing to spend $10,000 or more. Okay, and I can tell you
Yikes.
right now, the best one was the $10,000 one. I'm not gonna lie, it was really nice. But who the fuck wants to spend 10 grand to put some shit
For
on their face?
you have to
Was
be
he
made of
using
money for that.
What?
So he wasn't using the Vive,
No,
the
no. This
Oculus
this is
Rift
this
with
this
the
was a
high-end
VR.
tech, or
This was a VR set for people who make games in virtual
Oh.
reality. This was a VR set for people who do shit professionally virtual using VR. So, but you could also game on it too. And I can tell you right now, it was the best that I've seen. But who the fuck wants to spend 10 grand in order to enjoy it? You know what I mean?
Who wants to spend t- who wants to spend 10 grand for a mask that has digital power pushed right into your eyeballs
Like think
and
of
has
it.
the potential to blind you?
Well, think of it like this, okay?
it's not that.
Like I today I went to Costco and I saw that they had Iberico ham. Now Iberico ham is considered one of the best hams in the world. It's very expensive. If you want to get like a leg, a ham of Iberico ham, you're going to be spending upwards to like a full size one and not just a piece of one. You're going to be spending like $500 to $800. Okay.
To
Oh,
say
Jesus.
that's a piece of your rent.
Now I've had Iberico ham and it is really
Is
good.
it worth it?
It's really good. I don't normally say this, but it's like the ham is so good that it's slightly salty. It's subtly sweet. It like the pigs that they make use to make the ham are basically almost wild. So like during the fall, they're let out in the mountains where they go around eating like chestnuts and hazelnuts off the ground. I mean, it's really good ham. I mean, it's really good ham. But here's the thing. It's not so good that I would tell people to make it a permanent part of their diet. Like if you ever get a chance to have Iberico ham, go for it. But
I was about to say that's a once in a year kind of
Man,
meal.
that's like Wagyu steak.
actually Iberico ham's more expensive than Wagyu steak.
Oh, Jesus.
Dang.
Like an Iberico ham is like even if you get a small one, it's like $200. Whereas Wagyu steak, if you get like a nice size of Wagyu steak, which is more actually in terms of poundage
The pork?
than the pork, because you have to remember a ham. These hams are aged and cured, so a lot of the water comes out of the ham. So you're actually paying more for less. Whereas with a Wagyu steak, like if you get a cut of Wagyu steak that's even a huge cut, like a tomahawk steak, you're still getting a lot of meat and a lot of like it's not dried or aged and the water hasn't gone out of it. So the juice, the blood, whatever. Um, but yeah, I mean, my point is this: the best VR is so prohibitively expensive for the average consumer that it's like you're not gonna get it. Most people aren't gonna
Like
get it.
VR would be, I think, like I said, like I've said before on this cast, VR would be really good for other industries, or one day VR would just simply just be a pair of sunglasses that you put on your face. That's
Yeah,
wireless.
and even then, I'd be
Yeah.
kind of suspect, but I get where you're saying. I think that VR will someday come, but it's not. by the time VR becomes affordable to most people and like like able for normal people to get it, the next big thing will have come along and VR will be overtaken.
Yeah.
You know, like I remember going on this website and I said I don't think VR is being adopted like people think it is. I think a lot of people want VR to be adopted to that point, but it's not going to be that point. And they jumped on me and it was like they were like, well, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, yeah, I do, because I remember when VCRs were a rare technological commodity. I remember when DVDs were a rare technological commodity, and then over time that shit became commonplace. I don't see, like, to the point where they were included with shit that you bought. Like, you know, there came a point. There used to be a time where CD players were were extra new technology. They did not come with your computer. Now, then there was a point where if you had bought a PC and it didn't have a CD player, you thought there was something odd going on, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, that's how you know technology is being adopted. It's like, you know, there used to be a time where microwaves were really expensive. Now, if you buy a house or have an apartment and it doesn't come with a microwave, you get kind of weirded out. Because that's like, it's a basic appliance now that people think needs to be part of the package, you know? So, you know, I don't think VR is ever going to get to that point where people are going to buy some type of product and be like, oh, it doesn't come with VR? What the fuck? I don't think it's going to get to that point. So I don't think VR is going to be, you know, everyone's like, it's the next big thing. Really? No. But that's my own personal opinion. Our next topic is Frost Giant Studios, which is headed up by former Blizzard developers who worked on StarCraft 2, Warcraft, and other games, say they want to make the next great real-time PC game, real-time strategy PC game. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
I'm not really into RTS games, so I don't really have an opinion on it.
All right. Joel? Okay, then I guess I'll go. I believe it or not, you guys might not know this about me, but when I was in high school, we had a computer lab. And in that computer lab, all the computers were connected to each other through a local area network. And after school, if I did my homework or I didn't have a lot of homework and it was something that I could just kind of like blaze through, I would play computer games in the computer lab with other kids. I'm talking Doom multiplayer, Duke Nukem multiplayer, Serious Sam multiplayer, Quake multiplayer, Unreal Tournament multiplayer, and of course strategy games.
All that on LANs.
Yeah, well, really LAN is one of the best networks for playing PC multiplayer because it's really fast. If you have the right cabling, but anyway, so basically, we would play StarCraft and Age of Empires multiplayer. Okay, and occasionally Civilization, but Civilization is a long haul game. Like you need to have like an hour if you're playing against someone else in order to really play Civilization. And most of the time we didn't have access to the computer lab for an hour. We'd have like 30 minutes. But anyway, I would play the shit out of StarCraft. With my favorite race, TOS forever, baby. That's right. Some people like Zerglings, some people like Terrans. I was a TOS player. I loved playing as Protoss. And I got really good at playing as Protoss. So much so that when we had a school-wide tournament, I got second place in the runoff. Beat the guy who...
That's quite an achievement.
Beat the guy in third place, had a rematch against the first place guy, and beat him with Protoss. Protoss! Got first place against the first place guy with Protoss.
Wow.
One of the hardest races to master in StarCraft.
That game was popular for so long, especially in Korea.
Yeah, it still is popular in Korea. They were
Yeah,
like,
I
we're
mean,
introducing this new game. No one gives a shit about StarCraft 2 and the rest of the world.
yeah, like in 2000, I think 2007 when G4 was on, they were talking about it, and people were still playing that old StarCraft game from the 90s at the time. I'm sure they're still playing it today because, well,
It's good.
that's that game.
You know, everyone's like StarCraft 2. Let me tell you what our StarCraft 2 was back in the day before they released StarCraft 2. It was Brood War. That was the sequel to StarCraft. Brood War gave you new campaigns, some new items. I mean, some new units for each of the three races. Um, you know, some new maps, some new challenge maps, and some new multiplayer. And let me tell you something, man. Brood War is where I kind of had to diversify my
skill set.
well, not skill set. I had to pick up another race because basically see here's the like each race has their strengths and weaknesses. Protoss have pound for pound have the most powerful units, but they can't heal and they're expensive to create. So once you lose a Protoss unit,
it bites you in the rear end, right?
well, it's gone. There's no way to recoup those losses. There's no way to mitigate it. You just have to make another one. Terrans are actually fairly well balanced between the two. They're like the Marios of the series. Terrans, you know, they have units. They have some units that hit really hard, but there's always like a caveat with Terrans. It's like siege tanks. Siege tanks against ground-based targets. Like if you get a row of siege tanks, like 10 units of siege tanks, and you put them into siege mode, and you tell them to bombard an area, siege tanks against groups of enemies, like ground-based enemies, are fucking awesome. The downside is that siege tanks against aerial enemies are fucking useless. And there's no technology you can research in the game with siege tanks to make them hit aerial units. So you just have to have a mix of units. Like Terrans are all about having a mix of units. Zerg have the weakest units and the cheapest units to create, but in the beginning, they basically the Zerg are all about controlling the terrain and making everything harder for you, because basically the Zerg, as they take over areas, the creep, which is their organic terraforming apparatus, spreads, and basically the Zerg don't need healers, because as long as a Zergling or any other Zerg unit is on the creep, they automatically heal themselves. So basically, the strategy with Zerg is to continuously just send waves of Zerg rushes and then pull your units back to wear down someone, and then finally send a full rush to wipe them the fuck out, because basically you can just pull them back and heal them. So you have like 2 or 3 groups of Zerglings or a mix of Zerg units coming in, attacking, wearing them down a little bit, pulling back. Keep on doing that, you can wear a motherfucker down.
So if anything, they did nerf the Zerg.
Yeah, they did in StarCraft 2, which is, I guess, one of the reasons people don't really like StarCraft 2 that much, is that they did nerf the Zerg. You know, Terrans start out like a Terran Marine is, like, in terms of strength, is between a Zergling and a Protoss Zealot. Personally, I like Zealots more because they just look cooler. I mean, a little guy who walks like that with little energy swords, it's awesome. But anyway, I think the new studio can, in fact, make a new RTS. Hopefully, it'll be good. So I don't know if it'll work, but hopefully it will. Knock on wood. Anything else anyone wants to go over before we move on to the next topic?
I think I'm good.
All right. We only have 2 more topics left. Balin Wonderworld opening movie teases Yuji Naka's next adventure. This is from Square Enix yet again. Sonic co-creators Yuji Naka and Naoto Oshima are releasing what is essentially a Nights in the Dream knockoff.
It looks okay. I thought it looked okay. I don't know. We'll see what happens when it comes out.
I'm not into the Nights and the Dreams, but I heard it was kind of interesting for being so trippy.
That was a tech demo for the Saturn?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never really thought that highly of Nights in the Dream, so like I'm not one of those people. Nights in the Dreams, it's fucking awesome. I'm not one of those people. I don't think it's terrible, but I'm not like in love with Nights in the Dreams, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But that's my own personal opinion. Next, Animaniacs. We have an official date for when they return, November 20th.
And we're talking about the
Awesome.
Animaniacs that gave us some pretty interesting commentary.
Yeah, fingerprints and all that cool shit.
Pianists.
Yeah, the pianist. Um, Dr. Scratch and Sniff's date, where they're in the car yelling and screaming, and it's bouncing up and down, and they're at a drive-through, and all the other cars are
Enough
bouncing
said.
up and down too. Like, there were so many jokes that if you're an adult and you saw it, you're like, I can't believe they got past this. And there's so many jokes as a kid, you had no idea what they were going for, but you laughed anyway. And now that you're older, you're like, you sly motherfuckers, you.
Yeah, that's the funny thing. If you're out to adult, you catch on to these jokes pretty quick.
Yeah. I mean, I hate to say this, but I really do like Animaniacs. I think Animaniacs was part of that triumvirate of cartoons that didn't talk down to their audience. From Warner Brothers, that didn't talk down to their audience and treat you like you were a fucking idiot. And I appreciate that. Because so many cartoons now, like, they treat children like they're brainless idiots.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, yeah, for every Adventure Time or, you know, regular shows, shit like that, you get shows that are like, this is made because we think your kids are too fucking dumb to understand complexity.
Yeah.
So, you know.
I'm gonna have a confession to make, and that
Go ahead.
one of my guilty pleasures was regular show. I did watch it every time it was on. It seemed like the only cartoon that was on Cartoon Network for like a year.
Yeah.
I never got into that show.
I mean, I get why people wouldn't like it, but you know, one show I didn't get was Adventure Time.
Same with that show, really.
Well, I hate to break this to you, but I actually like regular show. I like regular show. I think it's pretty funny. I mean, like, here's the thing. Cartoon Network had a period of time where all of their shows were just shit. Like, they were just doing just bad stuff, right? There was like
to the point where you even have live action shows.
Yeah. There was like the golden age. Like, the golden age of Cartoon Network was the cartoon era, where you had like Dexter's Laboratory, Kids Next Door, Powerpuff Girls, Samurai Jack, like cartoons that, yeah, kids could watch it, but it was like a lot of these cartoons were really smart. Cow and then you had the Silver Age, which was like Cow and Chicken, Ed, Edd and Eddie, Chowder, Adventures of Flapjack, stuff like that. Then you had the
No,
de-
there's. Oh, go ahead.
then you had the Dead Age, which was the Doldrums, which like you had like 8-ounce mouse and just like weird shit.
I was about to say, thankfully, that was an Adult Swim.
Yeah, but they would sometimes show that shit in the middle of the day too.
Wait, what?
They showed some shit on Cartoon Network. Like they had this show about this kid who like he was hit in the head and now he could see cartoons. I was like, what
See,
the fuck?
I mean, that was really. I thought that was, at least to me, I thought that was an interesting idea. It was just poorly executed.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the idea was cool. The execution was shit.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really bad. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that's like 2006, 2007, where it's just like nothing was good.
Yeah. I mean, like here's the thing. It wasn't a long time, but it felt like a long time because they literally they were dropping like shows were dropping like flies. There was no more Teen Titans. Um, we had Teen Titans Go. They rebooted Powerpuff Girls, and that was shit. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Those are two shows that really were part of my childhood.
Yeah, they keep on like the problem with Cartoon Network right now is that they keep on rebooting shit and making it worse than the original. Like Teen Titans Go is worse than the original Teen Titans. The new Powerpuff Girls is worse than the original Powerpuff Girls. The new Ben 10 is actually about on par with the first run of Ben 10, except the art style is shit.
Yeah. What is going on with cartoon art style?
Because it's cheap to
Like-
animate. It's cheaper to animate the overly simplistic art styles than it is with the art styles they had before that were more like. Because you have to remember, when Batman the Animated Series came out, every Western cartoon was trying to emulate that art style that was almost semi-realistic. You get what I'm saying? So
Yeah,
you
how
had
much
that
of
for like
cartoon-
5-10 years.
I wonder how much that cartoon took to make. At the time.
It was expensive.
Is that? Yeah, that definitely wasn't cheap.
But you have to remember, it's one of the few cartoons that actually won an Emmy. So it was worth
Yeah.
it. It's a good show.
Which is kind of hard to imagine that people would say, let's try to not do that.
Well, I mean, if you have a certain amount of money and you're trying to put out, because the thing, cartoons aren't really about, like, back in the day, cartoons were there to sell you, commercials and shit. Now, a lot of the commercial money isn't really where the money. Cartoons are, they need something to fill in time. So they want something that's cheap to make that'll hold a kid's attention for X amount of time. So they want to make shit cheaply. Whether it's good or not is regardless. They just want something made cheaply, which is why you have this cheap ass looking art style.
Yeah.
Which is kind of sad because I like
Yeah,
detailed art style in cartoons. Not everything has to be detailed, but I really like when they, make shit look good. No, go ahead, Kadoshi.
Shows like Powerpuff Girls and Dexter's Laboratory had a particularly simple art style, but it still looked good.
Yeah.
It's not the fact that the art style is necessarily cheap. It's just that it doesn't look good, and then the characters aren't all that compelling.
Yeah, but even
Like-
Dexter's Laboratory, you could tell from when they went to how they used to animate it and draw it to when the new season, like the fourth season, you could see how the art style had changed for the characters and shit started looking cheaper.
Oh yeah.
It's like-
especially when what's his name left the project.
Jindy
then they
Tartakovsky.
Yeah,
could
yeah,
tell-
they handed off to a new studio. Ugh.
You could tell when the shit got cheap. It's like, come on, man. You already have a really easy to animate style that's really expressive. Why the fuck would you go even cheaper? And that's what they did.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm so glad that Jenny Tartakovsky, when he brought back Samurai Jack, actually made it look like it did back in the day. Even though he was using a completely new animation technique, it looked like it did back in the day. I appreciate that versus the shit that they did, with the other stuff. But anyway, this kind of devolved into shitting on modern cartoons. So anyway, next we have Devolver Digital acquires Serious Sam developer Crow Team. Any thoughts on this? Yes, no, maybe so?
Well, I mean,
I am the terror that
publisher, I guess.
All right.
Digital developer.
Digital,
if I remember,
weren't they a really small indie studio for a while, and then they got some money? What was their big breakout game?
Serious Sam.
No,
yeah,
Devolver Digital.
that was actually
Devolver Digital. Here, let me check. I think their big thing now is that they basically are the publisher for a lot of indies. Here, let me look it up. Devolver Digital. I'm gonna wiki that shit. So yeah, their big thing is that they basically just published a lot of Serious Sam games.
Yeah.
Like their big thing was Serious Sam for a long time, and then their big thing after that was Hotline Miami. Like that was what put them on the map, Hotline Miami.
Oh, okay, that's the game. Okay.
Yeah. And then they went to Shadow Warrior, where they published those games.
Yeah.
Like basically, they publish games like they publish single A and double A games.
Yeah.
I mean, that's their big thing right now. They publish games that otherwise would kind of get, slip through the cracks. So, there you go. Which leads to our final topic, which we will talk about remakes that failed and how we would have fixed them. Or a remake that we wish someone would do that, would be good. So who wants to go first?
I'm gonna be blunt as fug, and I'm probably gonna be looked at weirdly. Either Shaq Fu or Sparkster the Rocket Knight.
All right.
And I'm not and for one, I'd say try to go back to fighting game roots, because if anything, going beat 'em up is kind of a weird deal, especially if your first game was a fighting game. I mean,
what was a
look
shit?
how
The first game was a shit Street Fighter clone.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, I was gonna say look how Mortal Kombat turned out when it went from fighting game to action adventure game. And you could guess why I say that's a weird concept to go in. Though, if anything, since they're trying to be a fighting game clone, at least have the decency to wear on your sleeve.
Well, Shaq Fu was a Street Fighter 2 clone, but a shit one. Like the control inputs were so bad that basically there were 8-10 playable characters and only about 3 of them you could actually pull off their combos, their special moves. So
I was about to say that the input lag in there is atrocious.
Yeah, I had Shaq Fu for my SNES. It's the only game that I ever destroyed. Well, I mean, here's the thing. You have to remember something about me, okay? At that time, I lived in Orlando, Florida.
I was saying
O'Neal,
because If
Sha-
anything, I'm surprised you got that.
Shaquille O'Neal. Here's the thing, okay? At that time, I lived in Orlando, Florida. Shaquille O'Neal was with the Orlando Magic. We were Orlando Magic fans. I was a Shaq Attack fan because I remember watching those games where he fucking destroyed those. He destroyed that fucking scoreboard with that slam dunk. So I was a huge Shaq fan, and I listened to his rap album and everything like that. I was like, hey, sure, yeah, why not? I'll buy his game. Or I talked my parents into buying his game because I was a kid. I didn't have money. It is one of the worst games I have ever played before in my life. That is a terrible game. Shaq Fu is one of the worst games I've ever seen. I would like to see a Shaq Fu 2 that actually was a good fighting game. That would have been the ironic thing to do. We're making Shaq Fu The Legend Returns, but it's actually a good 2D fighting game.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, make it a fighting game that was at least better than the trash that it was in the past. That would have been a redemption arc kind of game.
But no.
Yeah, when I heard that game announced, I was like, who in the world was asking for this?
And
I personally think it was a vanity project.
Uh,
I think someone went to Shaquille O'Neal and said, "Hey, you know, it'd be cool if you made a sequel to Shaq Fu." He's like, "You know what? Yeah, why not?" Because Shaq's got money like that. He's like, "Why the hell not? I'll do it." And so we got
that
Shaq Fu: The Legend Continues, or The Legend Returns,
that
whatever.
Legend Returns, and I have to say that would be the biggest troll of all.
I mean, it's not as bad as the original Shaq Fu, but the original Shaq Fu is so absurd that there's some redeeming qualities to it. The Shaq Fu,
Really?
well, because it's ridiculous. Okay, Shaq is over in like Chinatown someplace, and some kid gets kidnapped, and some old Chinese man shows him a portal in this back room where he goes into an alternate world to fight an evil mummy. Like that sounds ridiculous. This sounds like a Saturday morning cartoon show. The new Shaq
Yeah,
Fu just looks ridiculous. It's like the new Shaq Fu game is just a mediocre beat 'em up. It's not even a fun beat 'em up. It's just overall mediocre. It's like a shitty version of Streets of Rage.
I would make the joke that if you've played
Hello.
if you the Michael Jordan game,
I
and
did, but
you
that's
probably
actually the Michael Jordan game is actually pretty good.
I was gonna say, if anything, you probably say it has more qualities that would go near that than what that we saw in Shaq Fu 2.
Well, I mean, believe it or not, the Michael Jordan game is actually a pretty decent platformer. It's a little weird to get into because you attack with basketballs, but it's actually pretty good. Charles Barkley Shut Up and Jam, decent basketball game. I mean, it's not as good as NBA Jam or some of the more technical NBA games of the time, but still pretty good. Shaq Fu is bad. Like the gameplay mechanics are bad. The actual idea behind the game is actually pretty cool. The execution's off. I agree with you. Shaq Fu being redone in a better way would actually be pretty cool. Kanoshi, do you have an old game or a remake of a game that you were like, man, this could have been awesome, but you fucked it up?
Hi, I'm
no, this is gonna be an unpopular opinion, but the Super Mario 3D All Stars, while it wasn't a failure, it could have been a lot better. They could have done a lot more with it, rather than just porting the games over to the Switch. They could maybe, I don't know, rebuilt those games from the ground up. I thought it's kind of ridiculous that they ported those games over and still have the nerve to charge $60 since
Uh,
they're $20 for a game.
so you're not upset at the port. You're upset at the minimum of effort they put into the port.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I agree. That's not even an unpopular opinion. I agree that it was Nintendo since the Switch launched has slid into complacency with a lot of their IPs. where they're just kind of just like, you know, because the Switch is selling so well and people are buying so much software, they feel like we don't have to put forth as much effort as we would have if the Switch was struggling or we had competition that was actually putting up a good fight.
Yeah.
I mean, because I will tell you, some of the best games we've ever gotten from Nintendo is when they actually feel like they have something to prove.
Yeah.
You know, because they had something to prove with the N64, they came out swinging with Mario 64, and just a few months later with The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Because they had something to prove against Sega, we got such great games coming to the Super Nintendo and the NES. I mean, you know, when Nintendo really doesn't have anything to prove, they get complacent, which is kind of a flaw with Nintendo, is that they do get complacent when they think they don't have to do shit, which is a fuck up on their part. Case in point, the Wii. Like, people forget, the Wii had some good games from Nintendo, but the Wii didn't have nearly as many good games as it should have had, considering the amount of money Nintendo was printing selling Wiis and games for the Wii. But whatever. I guess it's my turn. The game that I would like to see a remake of, believe it or not, I would like to see a remake of an old Wii game. I would like to see a remake, but done well, of Red Steel, the first Red Steel. Remake that game so that it's actually good, where the motion control actually works. That would be awesome. I would love that. That would be a fucking awesome. Because the idea behind Red Steel, you're basically this guy with a samurai sword fighting against enemies. That's cool. Execution was shit. But with the technology that we have now, with motion control being much better than it was back in the day, you could totally do a Red Steel that's actually good. Or even better, another Ubisoft game that Ubisoft kind of shed out on the Wii U, Zombie U.
Yeah.
Do a redo of Zombie U, but make it good.
I was gonna say Zombie U. That's one of those out there Halloween games, isn't it?
Not really.
No, it's not super out there. You're just in a. It's just a zombie apocalypse, except there are mechanics of the game that, were interesting, but I guess weren't really well fleshed out.
Okay, check this out. What if they took Zombie U, all right, and combined the combat in Zombie U with, made the game better by combining aspects from Dead Island. Like more RPG elements and shit like that. That could work.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
People keep on acting like this shit. Oh man, it's impossible. You can't do this. You could totally do that shit. But that's my own personal opinion. I know some people will disagree. So, you guys have any thoughts before we move on to the next topic?
It was about Sparkster remake. If anything,
yes.
I was thinking this is probably going to be the odd one for me. Try to do Sparkster in a way that would simulate the Jumpin' Jack Flash game, and be able to fly and do adventures in 3D.
I was with you until you said the Jumpin' Jack Flash game, because I would not want to play a Sparkster game that emulated that gameplay.
I said to a degree. I mean, to a degree at least.
I'm not with you on that one.
Yeah, it's just that if anything, I feel like if if it could go, if Sparkster goes 3D, it probably be a real interestingly different adventure than any other that he's had. Though hopefully it's done by a good company and not something by something like the Sega team. But at least I would want to give it a very different take, like put it in a new direction to spark up some life.
Um, I mean, I would say if you're gonna do Sparks, like if I had my druthers and I could basically lead, Konami said you can make a Sparkster game and we'll give you like, you know, 3 million to make it. Um, I would make it into a Metroidvania and it would be a prequel to the original games. It would tell the tale of how Sparkster got his rocket pack and his laser shooting sword, the tale of his rivalry with Ajax. Um, it would basically be a prequel to that game, and it would culminate with like a fully powered up Sparkster with all of his equipment from later games, going on this awesome kick ass battle, maybe a mecha battle. Sparkster in a mech against Ajax and his mech,
Oh,
that type of thing. I would not, because I remember playing Jumping Jack Flash. That game is, mm, that's a special type of game. But
So what game is that?
Jumping
What's it
Jack
for?
Flash. It's this game where you play this rabbit robot jumping around shooting stuff in a first person view. It's kind of weird.
Oh,
It's a very
yeah, I
acquired
would get at
taste. I
least
would not. Yeah,
I thought it was. I thought you guys were talking about that game where
I
you
thought it'd at least be a
have a
I
jet.
thought it'd at least
It's
be an interesting take.
and it's this game that has where your jetpack, and I don't know. You play as some kind of animal. You have
Possum.
rocket, but
yeah, that's Rocket
possum
Raccoon.
and
Yeah, that's Rocket Raccoon. I mean, that's not right.
yeah.
That's Sparkster. That's what we're talking about.
Oh, okay.
I would like to see a remake of Sparkster, but I would not do. Like I said,
3D?
I would not do
What was-
Jumpin' Jack Flash because that game is.
Oh,
Mm-mm.
yeah. Because wasn't there a 2D version, 2D game
Of
on Sega Genesis?
Yeah.
Sparkster. Well, there
It
were
was.
two. There was one on the SNES. I mean, originally it was an arcade game, and then Konami ported it. Well, they made two games, one for the SNES and one for the Sega Genesis. The one on the Sega Genesis is a sequel to the arcade game. The one on the SNES is its own thing. They share some levels, like some level design, because Konami was bad about that. Like if you play Turtles in Time and Hyperstone Heist on the SNES and the Genesis respectively, like they share a lot of levels and enemies and shit like that because Konami was economical about reusing assets. I mean, I like Sparkster either way. They're both really good. The only bad Sparkster game is that shit remake they made during the 7th gen that was
Yeah.
3.5D, 2.5D, and like the art style was horrific. I'm like, if you're gonna do a remake, you guys need to do what Natsume did with Ninja Warriors again, and shit like that.
Yeah.
Like just go with just fucking just do that. Why do you always have to make things more difficult than they need to be, Konami?
Yeah, I get enough trouble with Konami in one area. I don't need them in two areas being a pain in the rear end.
Like, why do you make things more difficult than they need to be?
Yes.
Konami! You bastards. Sorry.
Yeah.
But anyway, anyone else have anything else they want to add before we get to unpopular opinions?
I think we're set.
All right. Then I guess it's me. So here's my unpopular opinion. Mm, my first and only unpopular opinion. My unpopular opinion is about gaming. I am tired of gamers excusing bad behavior because they like the developer slash publisher. Like people are like, well, Ubisoft, or they like a game from the developer slash publisher, like Ubisoft. They're like, people are like, well, this new Watch Dogs game looks awesome. Doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't fucking matter that the new Watch Dogs game, Watch Dogs Legion, looks awesome. It doesn't fucking matter that Assassin's Creed Valhalla looks um, awesome. Fact of the matter is that these games were made while people were fucking being terrorized. You know, and this wasn't some, no one knew and it was well hidden. Everybody knew about this shit. It was an open secret. And so it's really hard for me to like listen to someone say, "Man, this game looks awesome." I don't care. You know? It's like if I go to a restaurant and I see someone grab some little kid and beat the shit out of them in the kitchen. I don't care how good the food is. There's something going on there. I'm not going to eat that. I'm going to report this shit.
Yeah.
I mean, what is with these people? So, my unpopular opinion is I am tired of gamers letting shit slide just because they like um, the developer or they like the game that the developer makes. It's like, well, they did some fucked up shit, but man, I really love playing Assassin's Creed. Anyone else have any other unpopular opinions, or they just want to let it
I'm
die
probably
down?
I'm probably asking, but my unpopular opinion feels like it's a complaint. But here goes. My unpopular opinion: sports games probably should die this generation.
And why do you feel that way? Is it the oversaturation or the lack of innovation?
Let's see. Lack of innovation is one. The oversaturation is two, because of anything, we keep on getting these games year after year after year. And three, you guys are being monetization motherfuckers, because we not only get to have microtransactions in the form of those playing cards, which barely do anything, and really, you guys can't play with them properly in a strategic way, and you lose them every beeping year. But also these beep and commercials that you somehow sneak in during the sports games. Yes, I would like to see sports games die off this generation. Please and thank you.
I don't think sports games should die off. I just think they should, you know, actually make a sports sim that people want to play and that isn't trying to nickel and dime you.
I agree.
It's like I don't like sports games, but that doesn't mean that there isn't an audience for them. Just quit ripping people off.
Yeah, and actually make good ones. Like, like they need to make sports games that um they need to go back to basics. For one thing, these exclusivity deals where one person can do whatever the hell they want and there's no accountability for what they do, that shit needs to end.
The reason why I was trying to, reason why I was trying to not explode into bits of unbridled hate for one series of game, because the only thing that gets on my nerve worse than sports games is country music.
Really? You don't like Hank Williams? All my exes live in Texas.
Yeah,
F
I don't
that!
mind country. I don't mind country music.
All my exes live in
Ah!
Texas. And that's
Yeah,
why
I don't mind
I
it.
hang my hat in Tennessee.
I used to hate country music too, but there's I don't really hate any particular genre of music. There's always something that that sticks out.
I
But,
hate modern country music.
modern country is terrible.
Modern country music
For the
is
most
trash.
part.
Old stuff like Hank Williams, Ray Charles before he went into R&B used to do country music. Because basically, country music is just the blues, just some of the scales are inverted, and that's it.
Yeah.
Old country music. Although I can get why Jewel wouldn't like it, because basically in the South, if you hear country music, that's just like, I'm a black person. They don't like my black ass around here.
But yeah, but my unpopular opinion is that there's nothing exciting about next generation. When you see people bickering over UIs and the fact that one UI is in 1080p and another UI is in 4K, there's nothing to be excited about.
Yeah, they're not talking about the games. Like,
Yeah.
I remember when the PS1 and the N64 and the Saturn launched and people were talking about the games. It's like, people on the PS1 were angry because N64 people had Mario 64. And there was nothing like Mario 64 on the PS1 at launch. I mean, at launch,
Yep.
they had fucking Crash Bandicoot. And let me tell you something. Crash Bandicoot isn't even fit to get spit on by Mario 64. All right?
And Crash tried 3 times, if I remembered right.
Well, to be fair, Crash Bandicoot wasn't made to compete against Mario 64. Crash Bandicoot was made to compete against Donkey Kong Country.
That is just asking for a spanking.
And Donkey Kong Country is really good, so I can't really.
If you're trying to go against Donkey Kong, you're gonna get spanked.
Like, so if you're gonna compare the platformers, I would say that Donkey Kong Country 1 is better than Crash Bandicoot 1. Donkey Kong Country 2 is damn sure better than Crash Bandicoot 2. And Donkey Kong Country 3, which is the weakest one in the series, let's keep it real. It's the weakest.
Still dances.
It's still better than Crash Bandicoot 3. I said it.
That is honestly the most funniest and weirdest thing I ever heard, because Donkey Kong Country 3 is the one game of the series that I'm currently working on and is having a headache with.
Well, it's just not as well designed as the other two games.
Yeah,
and that's kind of
one
like
of
the flaw of the series.
one of my bigger complaints is the Donkey Kong coins.
Yeah, it's the problem with DK's Donkey Kong Country 3 is that basically they kind of blew their load on Donkey Kong Country 2. So where do you go from there? And so then they were just throwing shit against the wall. And some levels in DK3 are really well designed, and others are just kind of like, this is just a really shit level design, But
try the first boss.
Despite all of that, it's still better than Crash Bandicoot 3. Yes, I said it.
The only thing I would say that would be a reasonable fight between those two are the bosses.
Well, the bosses in Donkey Kong Country in the series got better with each iteration. So, like DK1, the bosses were kind of meh, except for King Cruel. He was just that was just fun. And then
He was a troll.
yeah, where you have that fake win, and then he comes back. Then Donkey Kong Country 2, the bosses got better. The bosses got a lot better in Donkey Kong Country 2. Donkey Kong Country 3, the bosses are at their most imaginative. It's too bad a lot of the like I would say only about 50% of the levels are really well designed. The other 25% after that are like pretty good, and then 25 are just trash. So, but that's my own personal opinion. So, anyone have any other unpopular opinions they want to say before we wrap things up and close things out?
I think we're set.
All right. So,
thank you everybody for coming to the BS Busters.
That's right. This is the end of the podcast. Thank you for coming by. If you would like to get in touch with the channel, you can reach us at
by email
at mrredfoxbsbuster@gmail.com, or you can at me on Twitter at Mr. Redfox91. There's a link to the Discord in the description of the video.
below.
So, with that being said, rate, comment, share, subscribe. Peace, good night, and
hype responsibly, and don't forget to vote.